Stay silent and let them reveal themselves. Imagine sitting across from someone you've trusted for years. A friend, a business partner, someone you once believed would never betray you. They're talking, explaining, smiling, telling you exactly what you want to hear. Everything sounds convincing. Every answer seems reasonable. Every excuse feels carefully prepared. It's something deep inside you refuses to believe it. Not because you have evidence, not because you've caught them lying, but because your instincts are whispering something your ears cannot hear. Most people ignore that feeling. They interrupt. They argue. They accuse. They rush to expose the truth before they actually understand it. The silent strategist does something completely different. He says nothing. He listens. He watches. He allows silence to become uncomfortable because he understands something most people never discover. Silence is not empty. Silence is pressure, and pressure reveals character. The moment people feel the need to fill silence, they begin revealing pieces of themselves they never intended to show. Their impatience, their insecurity, their fear, their arrogance, their desperation, sometimes even the truth. Human beings are uncomfortable with uncertainty. We rush to explain. We rush to defend ourselves. We rush to justify our actions. And in doing so, we expose far more than we realize. That is why the strongest observers rarely interrupt. They understand that words often hide intentions, but behavior never does. Today, we're going to explore one of the most powerful psychological principles you'll ever learn. Why silence makes dishonest people nervous. Why manipulators hate emotionally disciplined individuals. Why patient observers almost always discover what emotional reactors never see. And why saying less often gives you far more control than speaking more. Because once you understand the psychology of silence, you'll stop trying to uncover people's true nature. You'll simply allow them to reveal it themselves. Before we go deeper, I want you to remember someone. Someone who disappointed you. Someone who promised everything, but delivered almost nothing. Looking back, were the warning signs really invisible? Or were they simply drowned out by your emotions? Most people don't miss red flags because they lack intelligence. They miss them because they're too emotionally invested to observe objectively. They hear promises instead of patterns. They believe words instead of behavior. They chase explanations instead of accepting reality. And that mistake can cost years of your life. Years spent trusting the wrong people, defending the wrong people, loving the wrong people, waiting for people who were never coming. That's exactly why I created the Dark Mind Protocol. Because psychological awareness isn't about becoming suspicious of everyone. It's about becoming impossible to deceive. It's about learning to separate emotion from observation, hope from reality, words from behavior. If you've ever ignored your instincts, if you've ever trusted someone who slowly destroyed your peace, if you've ever realized too late that someone was showing you exactly who they were, then you'll understand why this matters. If you're ready to develop the mindset of someone who sees beyond appearances, you'll find the Dark Mind Protocol waiting for you in the pinned comment below. Now let's begin. The first lesson: silence creates psychological pressure. Most people think pressure comes from confrontation. It doesn't. Real pressure comes from uncertainty. Imagine you're sitting in a job interview. You answer a difficult question. Then, the interviewer simply looks at you. No smile. No response. No next question. Just silence. What happens? Almost everyone begins talking again. They explain more, add details that weren't requested, correct answers that were already acceptable, reveal information nobody asked for. Why? Because silence creates tension, and human beings naturally try to escape tension. The exact same thing happens in everyday life. Someone tells a lie. You remain silent. They continue talking, adding details, explaining more than necessary, trying to convince you, not because you challenge them, because your silence challenged them. Silence forces people to confront themselves. It removes the distraction of constant conversation. It creates space, and in that space, masks begin to crack. This is why experienced negotiators often remain silent after making an offer. Not because they're unsure, because they understand psychology. The first person who speaks often reveals the most. Police investigators understand this. Elite negotiators understand this. Experienced leaders understand this. The silent strategist understands this. He knows silence is not weakness. Silence is observation. Imagine standing beside a lake. If the water is constantly moving, you'll never see the bottom. But when the surface becomes still, everything hidden beneath suddenly becomes visible. The human mind works exactly the same way. When conversations become quiet, people begin revealing what movement was hiding. Their anxiety, their confidence, their intentions, their emotional stability, or the lack of it. This is why the person who fears silence usually reveals themselves first. And this brings us to something Machiavelli understood centuries ago. People rarely betray themselves through intelligence. They betray themselves through impatience. Most people cannot tolerate silence. They feel compelled to control it, to dominate it, to escape it. But every unnecessary word is another opportunity to expose themselves. That's why the observer rarely rushes. He understands something priceless. Time is his ally. Emotion is his enemy. The more patient he becomes, the more information naturally arrives. Without force, without confrontation, without arguments. Simply because human nature cannot hide forever. And once you understand that, you'll never feel the need to rush another conversation again. Because you'll know that silence is already doing the work for you. The second lesson becomes even more fascinating. Because people don't reveal themselves when they're being watched. They reveal themselves when they believe nobody is watching. The second lesson is one of the most overlooked principles in human psychology. People reveal themselves when they feel safe. Not when they're challenged. Not when they're questioned. Not when they're defending themselves. They reveal themselves when they believe they've already won your trust. Think about the beginning of any relationship. Whether it's a friendship, a romance, a business partnership, or even a casual conversation. Everyone is presenting their best version. They're careful, measured, attentive, generous, respectful, not because they're pretending, but because first impressions are performances. Every human being wants to be accepted, so naturally, we manage how we're perceived. The problem begins when people mistake the performance for the person. The silent strategist never makes that mistake. He understands that character isn't revealed during the introduction. It's revealed after comfort arrives, after routine replaces excitement, after patience outlasts appearances. Imagine buying a brand new luxury car. For the first few weeks, everything feels perfect. Every surface shines. Every sound impresses you. But only after months of driving do you discover how reliable the engine truly is. People work the same way. Time reveals what appearance cannot. This is why emotionally impatient people get deceived so often. They fall in love with potential. The observer falls in love with consistency. Potential is imagination. Consistency is reality. And reality is where character lives. Think about someone you've admired, not because they spoke beautifully, but because, year after year, their actions remained the same. They kept their word. They respected boundaries. They remained calm under pressure. They were predictable in the best possible way. That is character. Now, think about someone who disappointed you. Did it happen suddenly? Or did the signs appear little by little? A promise broken here. An excuse there. A small lie that became a larger one. Disrespect disguised as humor. Selfishness disguised as honesty. Most betrayals don't arrive like lightning. They arrive like dripping water. Slowly, quietly, patiently, until one day, the damage is impossible to ignore. The observer notices the first drop. The emotional person waits for the flood. That's why silence matters. Because silence slows you down. It gives you enough distance to notice the small things everyone else ignores. A hesitation before answering. An unnecessary explanation. A contradiction hidden inside confidence. A smile that disappears too quickly. Tiny details. Individually, they mean nothing. Together, they reveal everything. This is exactly why experienced detectives spend far more time watching than accusing. The accusation rarely creates truth. Observation does. Truth doesn't like to be forced. Truth prefers to emerge naturally, and it always does, if you're patient enough to wait for it. The third lesson may completely change the way you see conversations forever. The loudest person in the room usually knows the least. At first, that sounds backwards. After all, wouldn't the smartest person have the most to say? Not necessarily. Knowledge often creates humility. Ignorance often creates certainty. The person who truly understands human nature rarely feels the need to dominate every conversation, because they're too busy collecting information. Imagine entering a chess tournament. Would the strongest player begin by announcing every strategy, every weakness they noticed, every move they plan to make? Of course not. They would observe, study, adapt, then act. Yet emotionally, most people do the opposite. They immediately reveal what they think, what they feel, what they fear, what they expect, without realizing they're giving away valuable information. The silent strategist understands that information is currency. Every detail someone shares voluntarily is another piece of the puzzle. The more they speak, the clearer the picture becomes. Meanwhile, he gives away very little, not because he's secretive, because he understands the value of restraint. There's an old principle that successful negotiators follow. The person asking the questions usually controls the conversation. Why? Because questions create information. Statements give information away. That's why emotionally intelligent people ask more than they answer. They're curious. They're patient. They're listening for patterns, not perfect answers. Think about the last time someone wouldn't stop talking about themselves, their achievements, their intelligence, their success, their importance. How'd it make you feel? Probably exhausted, maybe even suspicious. Now think about someone who listened carefully, asked thoughtful questions, made you feel heard. You probably respected them more, not because they spoke brilliantly, because they understood something rare. People reveal themselves when they feel understood. That's why silence is magnetic. It creates space for others to speak. And while they're speaking, they're unconsciously revealing their priorities, their fears, their ego, their values, their emotional maturity. The observer isn't trying to trap anyone. He's simply allowing human nature to unfold naturally. This becomes especially powerful in relationships. Many arguments begin because both people are trying to be understood. Almost nobody is trying to understand. The silent strategist reverses this. He seeks understanding first, not agreement, not victory, understanding. Because once you truly understand another person's motivations, their behavior stops being confusing. Patterns begin making sense. Excuses lose their power. Manipulation becomes visible, and respect becomes much easier to earn. At this point, you may already be remembering conversations where someone accidentally revealed far more than they intended. Not because you caught them, because you simply remained quiet long enough for the truth to arrive on its own. That's psychological awareness, and it's one of the core principles behind the dark mind protocol. Most men believe strength means always having the perfect response. Real strength is different. Real strength is having enough discipline to wait before responding, enough confidence to tolerate silence, enough awareness to notice what everyone else misses. That's the difference between reacting emotionally and observing strategically. If you're ready to develop that mindset, the Dark Mind Protocol is waiting for you in the pinned comment below. Because the greatest advantage in any conversation isn't speaking brilliantly, it's seeing clearly. And that brings us to the next lesson, one that may save you years of frustration. Never interrupt someone who is revealing their true character. The fourth lesson may be the most practical principle you'll ever apply. Never interrupt someone who is revealing their true character. This is one of the hardest habits to develop, not because it's complicated, because your emotions constantly tempt you to interfere. Imagine you're having dinner with someone you've recently met. Everything seems perfect. They're charming, confident, funny. The conversation flows naturally. Then, almost unnoticed, they make a small comment about someone else. They mock a waiter, speak disrespectfully about an old friend, blame everyone for every problem they've ever had. Most people dismiss it. Maybe they're just having a bad day. The silent strategist doesn't judge. He observes. He says nothing. He waits. Because one comment is an accident. A pattern is the truth. Over the next few weeks, another disrespectful remark appears. Then another. Then another. Eventually the mask begins to slip. Not because you exposed it. Because time exposed it. This is why patience protects you. Most people try to solve mysteries with confrontation. The observer solves them with time. Time is the greatest lie detector ever created. No one can perform forever. No one can maintain a false identity indefinitely. Eventually, fatigue arrive. Comfort arrives. Routine arrive. And with them, the real personality emerges. This is exactly why manipulators often appear incredible during the beginning. They're investing, not emotionally, strategically. They know first impressions create emotional attachment. Once attachment exists, people begin ignoring contradictions. This is called confirmation bias. The mind starts protecting its own beliefs. If you've decided someone is trustworthy, you'll unconsciously explain away evidence that suggests otherwise. You'll say, they didn't mean it. They're under stress. That's not who they really are. The observer asks a different question. If this behavior repeats 5 more times, would I still make the same excuse? That question changes everything because it shifts your attention away from isolated moments toward recurring behavior. And recurring behavior is where character lives. Imagine standing beside a tree. You don't know whether it's healthy by looking at one leaf. You observe the entire tree, the roots, the branches, the fruit. People deserve the same kind of observation. Never build your opinion on one perfect moment. Build it on repeated evidence. That's exactly how emotionally disciplined people avoid years of disappointment. The 5th lesson is where silence becomes a form of power. Patience is a psychological power. Modern life teaches speed. Reply immediately. Decide immediately. React immediately. Post immediately. Answer immediately. Everything encourages urgency. Human psychology doesn't. The greatest decisions in your life should almost never be rushed. Choosing a business partner. Choosing your friends. Choosing who you love. Choosing who deserves your trust. Those decisions shape your future. Yet people often make them faster than they choose a phone. Think about that. Weeks comparing electronics. Minutes choosing people. No wonder so many lives become complicated. The silent strategist understands something few people ever learn. Urgency is often manufactured. Manipulators create urgency because urgency bypasses logic. Think of a salesman saying, "This offer expires tonight." Or someone saying, "If you really loved me, you decide right now." Or a friend insisting, "Come on, don't overthink it." Notice the pattern? Pressure. Pressure shortens thinking. Pressure increases emotion. Pressure reduces observation. That's exactly why scammers create countdowns. Why toxic people demand immediate answers. Why dishonest individuals hate thoughtful silence. Because every extra minute you spend thinking is another minute their influence weakens. Imagine a fisherman. He doesn't jump into the lake chasing every fish. He prepares. He waits. He studies the water. He understands timing. Human relationships work the same way. The impatient person keeps chasing. The observer waits for reality to surface. This patience is often misunderstood. People think patience means passivity. It doesn't. Patience is active awareness. You're paying attention, collecting information, watching behavior unfold naturally. There's an old saying, give someone enough time, and they'll tell you exactly who they are. Not intentionally, naturally, because maintaining a mask requires energy. Authenticity requires none. Eventually, everyone becomes tired. Eventually, everyone returns to their true habits. Eventually, character always defeats performance. That's why the observer never fears waiting. Waiting isn't wasting time. Waiting is gathering evidence. And evidence protects your future. Imagine how many painful relationships could have been avoided. How many bad business deals. How many fake friendships. Simply by allowing another 30 days of observation. 30 days. That's all. Not to judge, to observe. The observer understands that every day reveals another layer. Every conversation reveals another value. Every difficulty reveals another truth. Pressure doesn't create character. Pressure reveals it. That's why difficult moments are so valuable. Anyone can appear kind when life is easy. Anyone can appear confident when they're winning. Anyone can appear loyal when nothing is at risk. Real character appears during discomfort, during conflict, during disappointment, during failure. Watch how people treat those who cannot benefit them. Watch how they behave when nobody is applauding. Watch how they respond when things stop going their way. That is where truth lives. At this point, you might already be thinking about someone whose real personality only appeared months or even years after you met them. Most of us have experienced that. The difference is that emotionally disciplined people learn from it. They stop falling in love with first impressions. They start respecting consistency. That's one of the biggest transformations inside the Dark Mind Protocol. You stop reacting to appearances and start trusting patterns. You stop believing promises and start believing behavior. You stop giving trust away for free and begin allowing people to earn it. If you're ready to build that level of psychological awareness, you'll find the Dark Mind Protocol waiting for you in the pinned comment below. Because once patience becomes part of your identity, very few people will ever fool you twice. Now, let's move to the final lessons. Because observing people is powerful. Remaining patient is powerful. But neither matters unless you understand the final secret. The silent strategist never tries to expose people. He simply gives them enough space to expose themselves. The sixth lesson is where observation becomes transformation. Observation will always outperform confrontation. Most people believe the truth is discovered through arguments, through accusations, through forcing answers. But human psychology works differently. The harder you push, the harder people defend. The moment someone feels attacked, their mind stops searching for truth and starts searching for protection. Their ego takes control. Their walls go up. Their mask becomes stronger. This is why so many confrontations end with both people believing they won, while neither one learned anything. The silent strategist understands that confrontation often hides the very thing you're trying to uncover. Observation reveals it. Imagine walking into a forest. You don't force the animals to appear. You remain still, quiet, patient. Eventually, life begins moving naturally around you. Human behavior follows the same principle. The less pressure people feel, the more naturally they behave. And natural behavior is impossible to fake forever. Think about every manipulative person you've ever met. At first, they probably appeared almost perfect, attentive, confident, understanding, supportive. But eventually, small cracks appeared. Perhaps they became controlling. Perhaps they became jealous. Perhaps they started lying. Perhaps they became disrespectful. Did you discover those things because you confronted them? Or because enough time passed for their true nature to surface? Almost always, time exposed what confrontation never could. That's why the observer never feels rushed. He understands that reality doesn't need to be forced. Reality eventually introduces itself. This principle applies everywhere. Business, friendships, dating, family, leadership. The person who reacts immediately usually sees only emotion. The person who observes patiently eventually sees the entire picture. That picture is where wisdom lives. There is another reason observation is superior. It protects your own emotional energy. Every unnecessary argument drains you. Every pointless debate steals your attention. Every attempt to convince someone, determined not to understand, you waste something you can never recover. Time. The silent strategist asks a different question. Is this conversation actually worth my peace? Most of the time, the answer is no. Not because he's afraid, because he understands value. Attention is valuable. Emotional energy is valuable. Peace is valuable. He refuses to spend those resources trying to convince people committed to misunderstanding him. Instead, he observes, learns, adjusts, moves forward. That is power, not dominating conversations. Choosing which conversations deserve your attention. The seventh and final lesson is the foundation of everything you've learned today. The silent strategist never needs to win the argument. This may sound strange in a world obsessed with proving people wrong. Social media rewards arguments. Television rewards outrage. Ego rewards victory. But wisdom rewards something entirely different. Perspective. Imagine two men standing at the edge of a mountain. One spends hours shouting at the echo, desperate to prove he's right. The other quietly studies the landscape, learning every path before taking a single step. Who reaches the destination first? The man who protected his energy. Life works the same way. Every argument has a cost. Sometimes that cost is your peace. Sometimes it's your reputation. Sometimes it's your time. Sometimes it's your future. The observer understands that not every battle deserves a soldier. Some people argue because they seek truth. Others argue because they seek attention. Learning the difference changes your life. The silent strategist doesn't avoid conflict. He avoids meaningless conflict. When principles are at stake, he stands firm. When boundaries are crossed, he acts. When respect disappears, he walks away. But he never argues simply to satisfy his ego. Because ego demands victory. Wisdom demands clarity. There is enormous freedom in realizing that you don't need everyone to understand you. You don't need everyone to like you. You don't need everyone to agree with you. You only need to remain aligned with your values. That realization removes one of the heaviest burdens most people carry, the burden of constant approval. And once that burden disappears, your confidence begins coming from somewhere much deeper. Not from applause, not from compliments, not for validation, from character. Character is quiet. Character is patient. Character doesn't announce itself. It reveals itself through consistency. Day after day, decision after decision. That is why truly disciplined people appear different. They're not performing confidence. They're living it. At this point, you've probably realized something. Some of the greatest mistakes you've made weren't caused by a lack of intelligence. They happened because emotion moved faster than observation. You trusted before watching. You reacted before understanding. You explained before listening. You defended before thinking. Almost everyone has done it. The difference is what happens next. Some people repeat the cycle for decades. Others decide that today is the day they become different. They become slower to react, faster to observe, more difficult to manipulate, harder to deceive, impossible to control through guilt, urgency, fear, or emotional pressure. That transformation doesn't happen overnight. It happens one decision at a time, one conversation at a time, one moment of self-control at a time. That's exactly why I built the Dark Mind Protocol. Not to teach you how to manipulate people, but to make sure manipulation loses its power over you. Inside, you'll learn the complete psychological framework behind emotional discipline, strategic observation, masculine self-respect, and the mindset of the silent strategist. You'll discover how to recognize hidden manipulation, how to protect your peace without becoming cold, how to earn respect without demanding it, how to stop chasing validation, and how to become the kind of man whose confidence comes from within, not from the opinions of others. If today's lesson made you see people differently, if you realized you've been giving your attention too freely, if you're ready to build real psychological strength, the next step is waiting for you in the pinned comment below, because your greatest advantage will never be speaking louder than everyone else. It will always be seeing what everyone else misses. So, speak less, observe more, protect your peace, protect your standards, protect your attention, because attention is your most valuable currency. Spend it wisely. If this video helped you, subscribe to Dark Mind Protocol for weekly lessons on psychological mastery, emotional discipline, masculine self-development, and strategic thinking. Every week, we'll uncover the hidden principles that allow ordinary men to become calm under pressure, impossible to manipulate and impossible to replace. And remember, the loudest person usually controls the conversation, but the quietest observer often controls the outcome. I'll see you in the next video.